Alright guys, Epic fucking Slayers here, and today I'm going to show you my 500k plus high-end build and also my 200% headshot damage sniper. Now if you enjoyed the video, then drop it a like, it would be much appreciated, and let's start here. So what we're going to start with is the Skull MC gloves. Now if you're old Division player, I apologise, you already know what these are, but for any new players, these name gloves give you an extra 16% damage increase when no gear set bonuses are active. Now, the only way you're going to get a gear set bonus to activate is by having 2 gear sets on at one time, so you are able to throw in perhaps 1 gear set, maybe on knees or somewhere like that, if you wish, but unfortunately, on their own, they have no individual talents. As you can see, my Alpha Bridge knee pads have no individual talents, whereas, you know, my operator pads here have accomplished, which give you triple your rewards. So you're always going to want to run with, you know, 6 high-end pieces realistically, because you get more out of it that way. What we'll do is we'll start with the chest, we'll start with the gear, because that's the most important part to this, and we'll move on to the weapons and talents and whatnot. So the operator vest here, I'm running rapid on this. Now there are many other types of vests that you could perhaps run on this, but I like rapid the most, and the reason I like it so much is simply because my skill power is pretty low, and when I'm in the last sort of segment in health, then, you know, I want those skills to come back as soon as possible. So this really helps out with that. With that, I've got health and armor as the major attributes, followed by ammo capacity. You know, health and armor are probably the most ideal stats at the moment, best in slot sort of situation. So this is really, you know, an overall a very strong vest. Now moving on to the mask, again, there's loads of choices here, but this is what I'm picking. Now I've gone for refresh, and as I said with the chest there, skill power is pretty low, and refresh really does help a lot. When I'm in the last segment of my health, it increases my healing by 30%, which is substantial, because it probably gets me up, you know, from 1 bar to say nearly 3, but like full health. So it really helps out a lot. And you could perhaps run, you know, tenacious, which would increase your weapon damage, but to be honest, I found that I prefer the prefer refresh, to be honest. On this, I've got health, and in the minor attribute, I've got enemy armor damage. Of course, enemy armor damage in the minor attribute is best in slot at the moment, and major attribute is health. You know, you could actually vary this up if you wanted to add, say, critical hit chance, which I really like. That's always an option, but I've got health on this one and I can't roll it, so there you go. Now, moving on to the knee pads, as I showed you before, this has Accomplish, which triples your rewards. It's got pretty good firearms on it. It's got armor, of course. It's got enemy armor damage, bleed resistance, and disrupt resistance. Of course, armor will be taken away in 1.6, guys. You know, it'll be taken to health, so, you know, not too bad, really. And to be honest, guys, the reason I'm running these knee pads, you're probably wondering, is I simply can't find anything better than these at the moment, to be completely honest. Moving on to the backpack, and of course, running Specialized, and, you know, Specialized is probably the best talent in the game, in my opinion. You know, you kind of have to run it. It does make a big difference. You know, I've got armor, of course, and bleed resistance. At the moment, my bleed resistance is actually pretty good on this character, which is ideal at the moment. I mean, it's not such a big deal in 1.6, because Predators is kind of getting a bit of a nerf, but at the moment, this has got a good stamina roll, and it's a good backpack, so really happy with those. Gloves-wise, you know, I showed you before what it is. You know, low firearms roll. Unfortunately, these are the only Skulls MC gloves I've had drop at all, so I'm kind of going with it. Assault rifle damage, damage to elites, and critical hit damage. Again, these are nowhere near min-maxed. You know, critical hit damage could be up 17%. Damage to elites, I wouldn't want that. I'd want critical hit chance at, I believe, 6%. And assault rifle damage is fine, but I would have preferred the firearms to be a bit higher. And the reason being that, guys, if you haven't noticed, as you can see, my brutal hasn't procced on this, or my brutal talent isn't working on the sniper. And I'll show you why in a minute, and I don't agree with it, to be honest. And then lastly, the holster. I'm going with sturdy, because I find that, you know, 4 seconds in cover isn't much, even in PvP, and the 15% does make a big difference. With that, it's got armor, and the rolls on the free talents, no attributes, you know, they're okay. They're not particularly that good, but they're okay, and I haven't been able to get a better holster, to be honest. So that's my my set there, guys. That's the gear that I'm currently running. Now moving on to the weapons, I'm using the Lover C, and I normally swap between the Lover C and my lightweight M4. At the moment, the reason I'm using the Lover C is simply because of Deadly and Competent. And, you know, it's really good. Competent is very, very good, because when I use, normally what I'd use is my Seeker Mines, and then I would rush with the Seeker Mines, because normally players would get bleed off that, or they get staggered, and then Competent would proc, plus likelihood is I wouldn't have been tagged by then, and it would proc Vicious as well. And then the reason I'm running Deadly is simply because I spec into critical hit damage, because headshot damage in this game is, you know, it's hard, especially on console. It's really hard to hit, so you might as well just spec into critical hit damage and just aim for the body. It's much, much easier. So in regards to mods, I'll show you these. I've got an extended mag with crit chance and damage. Now, I could swap it for rate of fire, but I find that when I've got, 900 RPM on this, then I really can't control it at all. So I'd rather just go with this, because 850 RPM is fine as it is. As you can see on the small grip, 90% critical hit damage. As I said, I'm going into critical hit damage for this particular build. Stability on there, which doesn't really help. The 2.5%, you can't feel it. Again, on the loud vent break here, I've got critical hit damage, headshot damage, and critical hit chance. I could put this into, massive headshot damage. You can see my DPS goes up. But ultimately, the chances of you in headshots over body shots are minimal. So I'm just going to spec into critical hit damage. And lastly, again, with my scope, 19% critical hit damage, 5% optimal range, and 3% critical hit chance. I've got other ones on here. Sometimes I like to swap it out for critical hit chance, just to get me that sort of extra DPS. But to be honest, guys, I prefer the critical hit damage on this. And as you can see, I've got this Bastille skin. Moving on to my sniper. And as I said before, guys, with a sniper I can get 200% headshot damage on this. So it's a classic M44 carbine. It's got 171 headshot damage, and I believe that's one off the highest. I think the highest is 172. The base damage isn't overly high, 135. And unfortunately, Brutal hasn't gone on this, and I don't know why, because my firearms sit at 4790, and that's what it says as the requirement. So there must be a problem. I assume if I got 4791, then I'd get it, but yeah, I don't know. So, to be honest, guys, when I actually go in the dark zone, I do change up my set a little bit, but this should work. It should work. The reason I set it up is so that Brutal procs, to be honest. Vicious, again, is quite good on the M44, simply because the chances are you're going to be at full health when you're using a sniper, because you're going to be at distance, so it's nice to always have that extra critical hit, and unfortunately I can't swap out Swift, because I had to change out the first talent. So, not a bad sniper there, and by the way, I didn't show you the Lovis C. I got Deadly, Vicious, Competent. I did show you that, didn't I? Yeah, okay. Well, moving on to the stats here, as you can see, my critical hit damage sits at 114%, which isn't as high as my, say, SMG, my AUG, which I believe sits at about 147, but it's not too bad. Critical hit chance, 18.5%. Again, not too bad. I'll maybe prefer a little bit more critical hit chance than that. I tried to get towards more the 30 stage, but then I'd probably have to sacrifice some damage, and I don't know. This isn't a bad setup, to be honest, guys. Really happy with that. And then moving on to the sniper, I'll just quickly show you this. 207% headshot damage. So when I'm hitting targets, they're dropping pretty good, which is really good. Critical hit damage is low. And that's not a bad critical hit chance for a sniper at 13%. And as you can tell, I don't have Savage on either, which would have been bloody nice, but that's not the case. Moving on, guys, to my skills or my abilities. Now, I run Booster Shot because it's amazing. Still is amazing. Although it looks as though in 1.6 it won't be quite as good. The heal won't be that good. And I run Seeker Mine. Now, you're probably wondering why I run Seeker Mine, but to be honest, everyone's running Seeker Mine. It's really, really good because normally players, if they see Seeker Mine, they have to either aim down to shoot them or they get staggered and bleed. And within that time, you can rush enemies. And what with Competent that I've got on my thing, that's when I'm the most effective, is when my skills are out and I'm running at enemies. That's when I'm doing the most damage. And because I'm using Hipfire now, even in this on Xbox One, then I'm in their face like all the time. So this is really, really good. I really like this. Regarding talents, what I've had to do is to kind of get like a base pulse. I normally proc a headshot with precision. Of course, you've got On the Move, which is obviously very important. As I said, Tenacious would have been Tenacious would be good with Critical Save. That's the one. So with Tenacious, obviously you get the 10% extra damage when in the last health segment when you use a medkit. And when you use a medkit, you get damage resistance. So that's when you're most tanky and doing probably the most DPS. So it is a good mask, but I prefer Refreshed. And lastly, Strike Back. Again, I didn't know what else to pick, so I picked Strike Back. I don't know how effective it is, but it's nice to know that, when I'm getting low, then my skills are coming back quicker. And it has saved me on a few occasions. I've been able to get my heal back a little bit quicker when I'm kind of nearly dead, and it has saved me a lot. But there you go, guys. That's my 500k high-end build. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please like and subscribe. If you're new to my channel, then please subscribe as well. It would be much appreciated if you enjoy my content, of course. And I'll see you in the next one, guys. Peace.